give more returns. Get more security and more interest on your fixed deposits from Sri Lanka's largest finance company, LOLC Finance.
Be part of the solution to make your world a better place. Don't litter. Care for your community by disposing waste properly. Refresh Sri Lanka for a civic-minded society. In association with AICPA and CIMA, CA, the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka, and 99X. LMD, the voice of business.
Display your brand message on digital screens at prime locations. The largest digital advertising network in Sri Lanka. Emerging media.
Take Light 87 on the go with our mobile app.
It's what I want to hear.
Just search Light 87 in the App Store or Google Play right now.
87.8 and 87.6 island-wide. Light 87.
Hello and welcome to LMDtv. Today on the forum, we're talking about diplomacy and trade relations between Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. And here on the show, we have with us the High Commissioner for the People's Republic of Bangladesh in Sri Lanka, His Excellency Tareq Muhammad Ariful Islam. Very nice to have you on the show, sir.
I'm honored to be on your show. Thank you very much.
Starting off our conversation, last year, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka jointly celebrated 50 years of diplomatic relations. In your assessment, what have been the most significant milestones in this relationship?
Yes, last year we celebrated, we started the celebration of 50 years of our relationship, and it is going on this year too, and it will continue until March. So Sri Lanka recognized Bangladesh in March 1972, and this has been the cornerstone of the friendly relationship between our two countries. Bangladesh and Sri Lanka relationship is all about friendship, goodwill, and good neighborliness. We have no tension in our relationship. We try to help each other in our own humble way, and that is the beauty of the relationship. Now, over the last 50 years, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka, as close South Asian neighbors, have maintained very good relationship in bilaterally, regionally, and also in the international fora. Our leaders, our political leaders, and our delegates exchange visits regularly. So that political goodwill we are working on to translate and transform into more robust sectoral cooperation and also in a more meaningful way. We will be happy to know that there are as many as 33 bilateral instruments between our two countries, which signifies the robustness of our sectoral cooperation. Multitude of commonalities between our two countries is a cornerstone of our relationship. Strong people-to-people contact is also at the core of the relationship. Our business ties are very strong. A lot of Sri Lankan business houses are running successful business operation in Bangladesh. We are one of the top users of Colombo Port for transshipment of our export and import items. Our defense cooperation is good. Bangladesh and Sri Lanka are taking common approaches to most of the contemporary global issues, and we are helping each other in the international forum for tackling global challenges like public health crisis, food insecurity, climate change, migration, and all. And we are the partners of SAARC, BIMSTEC, Commonwealth, and of course the Indian Ocean Rim Association, IORA. And we are sharing our best practices of our respective development journeys. We are extending material and political support to Sri Lanka in our modest ability. We have been supporting you consistently in your fight against terrorism and on human rights issues. So all these speak of the very good relation and robust and friendly relations that our two countries enjoys. And these are the main features of the relationship as I see it.
And in your view, what steps should be taken to strengthen this relationship further as we go on?
The milestone of 50 years of our diplomatic relationship has given us satisfaction for what we have achieved and the long journey, long path we have traversed together. But at the same time, we are also mindful that we have to achieve more in the future. There is a huge scope for improvement, and we are working on realizing that potential. We want to take the relationship to the next level. For that, we need to, there are twofold approaches. We have to further strengthen the existing and traditional sectors of cooperation. And secondly, we have to open up new areas of cooperation. So we are closely working to further expand our sectoral cooperation in areas like connectivity, shipping, trade, public health, education, investment. And at the same time, we are also exploring newer areas like maritime domain, deep sea fishing, tourism, IT outsourcing, etc. So in my opinion, the relationship can only grow and flourish. And we are looking forward to make the relationship, make our journey ahead more beneficial and meaningful to our two peoples.
If we talk a little bit more about trade, do you perceive any weaknesses in existing trade agreements between Sri Lanka and Bangladesh? And if so, how can these be eliminated through deepened bilateral alliances?
Let me start with the bilateral trade volume to put things into perspective. The trade volume in 2021 was US dollar 3,004 to be precise. And interestingly, that is around 50% more than the trade figure of 2020. And remember, that happened during the height of the pandemic. Sri Lanka's export to Bangladesh is about 75% of the trade volume. So the trade balance is hugely in favor of Sri Lanka. However, the trade figure is not up to the potential. And the reason could be attributed to the kind of similar product lines of our two countries. For example, both our two countries export ready-made garments, tea, and manpower. And there are also issues with regard to rationalizing the sensitive lists under multilateral trade arrangements that you have referred to, and in this case, SAFTA and APTA. Then reduction of tariff, removal of non-tariff and para-tariff barriers are the other areas to look at. So to address all these things, our two countries have agreed to work bilaterally. And as a part of that, we have started negotiation for a preferential trade agreement, starting with a small basket of products. And we are hopeful that if the preferential trade agreement becomes successful, that will lead to more comprehensive trade facilitation arrangements, possibly an FTA. So that is how I look at the trade relations between our two countries, and I'm very hopeful that we can do a lot better in this sector.
Talking about trade and Sri Lanka, we have been battling an economic crisis since last year, and it's topped by a very significant foreign exchange crisis. In your view, how have these impacted trade relations and other relations between the two countries?
I don't think the economic crisis in Sri Lanka has impacted our bilateral trade much. Let me tell you why. If you look at the trade figure, Sri Lanka's export to Bangladesh in 2021 has gone up by 44%. If you compare to the export in the year 2020. So that is a good sign, and that is why I'm saying the trade relations has not been impacted much. Besides, our trade baskets are composed of mostly essential items, not the luxury items. So that is another positive side of it. Now, the foreign currency crisis in Sri Lanka, it may have had some impact on the trade relationship when it comes to denting the confidence of Bangladeshi traders, particularly those traders from Bangladesh who intended to do business with a new Sri Lankan partner, or who intended to do business with Sri Lanka for the first time. But I'm sure with your economic turnaround, that confidence will quickly come back.
And apart from trade and diplomatic relations, what else connects the Sri Lankan people to the Bangladeshi?
Our people-to-people contact is the cornerstone of our relationship, as I have said in the beginning. And our two peoples, they find natural affinity in each other, and because of our civilizational linkages, shared values and cultures, similar development aspirations, and even identical development challenges. And the historical route goes back to the arrival of King Vijaya from Bengal to Sri Lanka about 2,500 years back. Our languages have many similarities because Pali language is the common denominator between Bangla language and Sinhala language. And both Bangla and Sinhala languages have a lot of similarities in vocabulary, in syntax, and in structure. Common Buddhist heritage is another important link between our two peoples. Around 400 young Buddhist students are pursuing their higher studies in Buddhism in your monasteries and in the Buddhist and Pali University of Sri Lanka. There are a good number of Sri Lankan students pursuing their higher education in our institutions, particularly in medicine. We are hosting a sizable number of Sri Lankan professionals who are working in our ready-made garment sector and also in other industrial sectors and service sectors. So they are contributing to making the people-to-people contact even more stronger and deeper.
In its 52nd year since independence, what is your assessment of Bangladesh's development journey so far, and what lies ahead for your nation?
Indeed, the journey has been spectacular, to say the least. And over the past 5 decades, Bangladesh has turned itself into, from an economic basket case in 1971, into one of the emerging economies in the world. Our GDP growth, let me share a few, some statistics. Our GDP growth over the past 1 decade has been consistently above 6%. Right before the pandemic, it reached 8.2%, which was one of the highest in the region. The COVID-19 pandemic pushed back the growth rate to 6.2%. But again, in the last financial year, the growth has been a little above 7%. Our per capita income has tripled in the last 1 decade. It's now around $2,824. With a $460 billion economy, we are now the 35th largest economy in the world. Our fiscal and monetary indices are also very healthy. The inflation is stable, it's still in the single digit. So is the exchange rate. It has gone down a little over the past few months, but not to a big margin. It is our sovereign rating is also very stable. And all these have been possible because of sound fiscal and monetary management. Our foreign assistance dependence has gone down drastically. So has the grant element. So we no longer need food or commodity aid. What we need is mostly for our project aid. And our GDP to debt ratio is very healthy, 32%, which is one of the lowest in the region. Our foreign debt is fairly distributed. Our export has been growing consistently. And we are also diversifying our export basket from ready-made garments. We are now venturing into IT outsourcing, shipbuilding, and pharmaceutical. And all this has been possible because of the pragmatic and the dynamic leadership, political leadership given by our Honorable Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina. She has taught us to think big and to pursue our dreams wholeheartedly. She has brought back the political stability in the country. Then she put in place all the sound and people-centric macroeconomic policy, which has created the right condition for growth. And then she ensured implementation. Of course, very recently, we are facing some challenges, temporary challenges like rest of the world. And those are mostly because of the external factors on which we do not have any control. For example, the war in Ukraine. But still, the medium-term and the long-term prospects look bright. This has been corroborated by the rating agencies, the Standard & Poor, the Fitch, and the Moody's in their last September's rating gave a stable outlook for our economy. Now, building on these successes, our country is now setting the stage for even higher economic achievements and job creation, and how we are doing it. The mainstay is investing more in our energy sector, in inland connectivity, in urban projects and infrastructure, and also by prioritizing climate change adaptation and disaster risk management. Now we are aiming at transforming Bangladesh into a developed country by 2041. According to PwC, Bangladesh is going to be the 28th largest economy in 2030. And by the same year, as per the projection of HSBC, we are going to be the 9th largest consumer market in the world. And according to the Boston Consulting Group, we will become $1 trillion economy by 2040. So we are at the same time, we are consistently aiming higher in terms of goals, building on the launch pad of a digital Bangladesh. Our next vision is to become a smart Bangladesh. It's about being a futuristic Bangladesh. It's about innovating and scaling up sustainable digital solution, which is accessible to all citizens and all businesses. So we are very hopeful that despite all the global challenges and the downturns, we are right on course or on our development.
If we, you spoke about the region, if we focus on that a bit, in a very prospering region like South Asia, what is the role that countries like Bangladesh and of course Sri Lanka, what should they play to increase the region's attractiveness, especially in terms of global trade?
Very relevant question. I mean, Bangladesh and Sri Lanka may not be the largest economies in the region, but we definitely can play a very important role. Let me tell you why. One important feature of our relationship is that we enjoy a lot of convergences, and the convergences complement each other. So if we can consolidate these convergences, our two countries can benefit significantly. And the countries like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka can definitely enhance their attractiveness for global trade, international trade. Let me tell you how. Let us look at ready-made garment sector, for example. So our ready-made garment sector started its journey in the early 80s. And one most important driving factor was our competitive and huge labor force. And then your garments factories and your entrepreneurs took a lot of ready-made garments expertise to Bangladesh, and the combination worked out very well. So now we are the second largest supplier of ready-made garments in the world. And we are now at the bulk and the low end of the segment, while you are at the high end of the segment. Here also we can complement each other through value addition. And there are other sectors as well. Tea, for example, in this sector, through tea blending, our two countries can complement each other, and it can be a mutually beneficial win-win situation. In the IT sector, for example, We have the world's largest number of freelancers, and Sri Lankans are very good in IT expertise. So these two competitive advantages can be coupled. And if we combine the competitive advantages, that will definitely enhance our global competitiveness. I have told you that Bangladesh is one of the top users of the Colombo port. So here also our two countries can help each other by maintaining the supply chain continuity and thereby reducing the risk factors for international trade. So yes, our two countries can do a lot to push the South Asia region to greater prosperity.
And what are the challenges that you see in the South Asia region for countries like ours? And do you think there is a role for SAARC to play to mitigate these challenges?
Yes. The South Asian countries are facing formidable challenges because of a number of reasons. COVID-19 pandemic, the lingering impact of it, the war in Ukraine, and the global economic slowdown, the declining growth, the reduction in trade, declining tourism, enhancement of poverty, food insecurity, high inflation. These are the common challenges all the South Asian countries are facing. Maybe a few are coping better than others. So mitigate all these challenges, I believe SAARC can play a positive role, an important role, given that the member states of SAARC decide to do so, ready to do so. Despite many limitations as a regional forum, SAARC has been contributing to integrating the South Asian economies, although not to the desired extent. But still, SAARC did facilitate a bit of South Asian economic integration through the SAFTA and the SAARC Development Fund. Now, to give an example how the SAARC platform could help us respond to our common challenges, I would like to mention about the SAARC COVID-19 Emergency Fund. It was founded in 2020 when the pandemic struck, and with the voluntary contribution of all the member states. And the fund was used by the member states to meet the immediate expenses at the height of the pandemic. So yes, if the political willingness is there, SAARC can definitely play an important role.
Your Excellency, looking at global priorities like combating climate change, pandemics, terrorism, where do developing countries stand and what should our role be?
Developing countries are, of course, most vulnerable to any global challenge. And in fact, developing countries like Bangladesh and Sri Lanka are disproportionately affected by the shocks and stresses like what you have mentioned, the public health crisis like the pandemic, migration, and climate change. They are reversing our developmental gains. They are aggravating the fragile situations. They are contributing to social upheavals. But unfortunately, when it comes to addressing all these challenges, the developing countries stand on a very weak ground because of lack of endowments and lack of capacity. We do not have the technical or financial wherewithal or the human resources. And to make things worse, most of the challenges, the developing countries had a little role to play. They were the making of others, and the developing countries are unfortunately bearing the brunt. So to address all these challenges, developing countries have a huge role to play. So let me mention a few steps we should be taking. One is to take up things on an individual, on a country basis. So we have to build up our resilience. We have to find indigenous and homegrown solutions so that we can do the risk management and we can prevent and respond and recover from these global challenges. Secondly, we should focus on capacity building. And in this case, since we do not have the natural or financial endowments, we have to seek the support of the development partners Thirdly, we should focus more on the vulnerable and marginal sections of the population. Fourth, the South Asian countries, because of our similarities, our ground realities are similar, and perhaps our best practices can fit each other's in addressing their respective challenges. So that is the best experience sharing is also important. And the lastly but not the least, we have to encourage, we have to be more engaged in multilateral system, and we should use that platform to raise our collective voice, to ask for our legitimate rights and our legitimate demands. We should make a stronger alliance, a greater alliance among the developing countries, so that our voices are heard at the international fora in a more loudly. I think so. It's the individual approach and the collective approach. I think these are the ways to go.
You spoke of climate change. When we're trying to mitigate climate disasters, what is your assessment of Bangladesh's use of sustainable energy sources, for example, solar energy?
Yeah. Yes, particularly after the war in Ukraine, I think Bangladesh and most of the countries in the world have started, focusing more on the use of renewable energy, and this was a priority for us even before, but I think now we are pursuing it more vigorously. Our government has already made a master plan when it comes to solar energy, since you have asked about solar energy, which has the highest potential in our case. The wind power generation has less prospect in Bangladesh because of our geographical location. So it's mostly about solar energy. And looking at the potential, our government has already made a master plan so that we can utilize our abundant solar energy. We have a national solar energy roadmap, which was drafted in 2020, and the target is to generate about 6,000 megawatts of electricity by the year 2041. So when it comes to solar power generation, our focus is twofold. One is the rooftop photovoltaic system, and the other one is ground-based large solar parks, solar power plants for that matter. So we already have a few large ground-based solar power plants, but in our case, land is a big scarcity of land is a big impediment. So we are trying to switch to floating solar power plants. On the other hand, the rooftop solar housing system is more popular because in this case, you don't need the land acquisition. And we have focused more on the rooftop off-grid solar systems because a large segment of our population live in remote areas in the villages. And therefore, the solar home system has been critical in our vision to achieve electricity for all. We have the highest, the biggest solar home system in Bangladesh, involving 6.9 million households. That means 6.9 million rooftop solar photovoltaic system. And through this, we are providing clean and affordable energy to 20 million people, which is about 16% of our population. And gradually, rooftop solar photovoltaic system is also becoming popular within the industrial sector. And these systems have reduced our greenhouse gas emission by 9.6 million tons carbon equivalent, and we have reduced our kerosene consumption by 4.4 billion liters. So these are big contribution, our big contribution to the cause of environment. And now we are now moving on to other sectors, like we are having solar power irrigation system. These are all pilot projects. And we are having solar diesel hybrid solution for our telecom sector. And we are also at the same time investing generously in R&D to develop our solar power generation and to bring in necessary changes in our energy mix.
Your Excellency, if we move on to another focus area, LMD recently launched our campaign Refresh Sri Lanka, where we encourage a mindset change to create a more civic-minded society. When we look at bilateral trade and diplomacy between nations, what would your focus areas be to inspire more social capital development-driven agendas between countries?
I personally believe that the civic-minded approach or a people-to-people contact. These are pivotal in diplomatic relation and particularly for sustaining friendly relations between the two countries. My focus, therefore, has been to develop or build the Bangladesh-Sri Lanka relationship in such a way from which the common people can benefit, and this benefit has to be tangible. Then only it will become more meaningful and more appealing and more appreciable to our two people. Because without them, no relationship can sustain. So accordingly, my focus area has been mostly people-centric. For example, agriculture, education, tourism, public health. And I feel through these sectors, we can immediately and directly touch common people's lives. From that perspective, economic ties are also very important, and it's a good thing that we enjoy a lot of complementarities in our economic and investment collaboration. I have also been focusing on maritime connectivity that will also bring robustness in our existing economic ties. So yes, civil society oriented approach, and more precisely the people-centric approach is very much should be the driving force of any relationship.
We're almost at the end of our conversation. And before we go, Your Excellency, are there any closing thoughts that you would like to share with our viewers?
I will again go back to our development journey, because that is one thing we would like to share with the region and with the rest of and with the developing world. We are having a spectacular development journey, but at the same time, we also acknowledge that the path has not been easy. We started our economy, our development journey with a war-ravaged economy in 1971. We have had very difficult time dealing with natural disasters. We have had very turbulent political history. Our journey with industrialization has been beset with a lot of difficulties. For example, I can mention about ready-made garments industries. We had to go through a very difficult and painful experience in developing our garment industry, where you see it today. Our factories, but gradually our factories became compliant. And now we are one of the forerunners in transparency regarding workplace safety, green path development, and value chain responsibility. So the point I'm trying to make is that our story, our success story is the story of a comeback. It's a story of resilience. We took every adversity to reflect on, to build back better. So from every setback, we learned our lessons and we came out stronger. Therefore, I believe the current economic hardship the Sri Lanka is currently going through will refresh Sri Lanka, as your campaign says. And I am confident that Sri Lanka will bounce back strongly and very soon. And all signs are there. And we are firmly with you in your endeavors. And the last 50 years have provided us a very solid foundation for taking our relationship to the next century and beyond. And we have to utilize this for your economic turnaround and our mutual prosperity. Well, that is what I wanted to say in my closing remarks.
Thank you very much for your kind words and insights, Your Excellency. We've been talking to the High Commissioner for the People's Republic of Bangladesh in Sri Lanka, His Excellency Tareq Muhammad Ariful Islam. Thank you very much for being a part of our show.
No, it's an honor and privilege for me to be on LMDtv, and basically, I think I also I wanted to share our development experience as we do. If it helps, it helps in any country, and it has been quite an interesting conversation, and definitely we will carry on our conversation, and thanks to you and also to the viewers for your attention. Thank you. Aiboan.
Aiboan, thank you very much. And to our viewers, until next time, take care.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on Facebook and Twitter. Thank you for watching and stay safe.